Solo as far as host goes today, but I have a wonderful guest here that is local to my area too, which I appreciate. My new area. I'm originally New York, but now in Colorado. We were talking before this, and we have Dr. Peppard on. And as I said that and enunciated the name, I was like, wait, that's Dr. Peppard. So I know I'd like a quick intro of yourself, Darren, as well as I know you said you have a good story on that too. So and then we'll get into your book, Road to Awesome, which is got some really great tone to it and really great messaging in there. So go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Al. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on today. I'm excited about that. So Dr. Darren Peppard, 26 years in education. I'm a superintendent. As you said, Al, I'm here in Colorado. So just over the hill from you. I'm up here just south of Rocky Mountain National Park in Grand County. I'm in West Grand School District, so the western half of the county. So I completed my doctorate degree in 2017, and I graduated just 2 weeks before my final graduation that I got to MC as a high school principal. And my students put a whole bunch of Dr. Peppers up on the stage just right before everybody came out. But one of my favorite Dr. Peppard stories is my first year here as a superintendent, and my office is attached to our K-8 school. So I'm down at one of the intersections, and some of our third graders were coming in at lunchtime. So I just stopped and I said hi to all of them. And of course, this is pre-COVID, so I'm high-fiving them. And as every kid comes by, it's hi, Dr. Peppard, hi, Dr. Peppard, hi, Dr. Peppard. And then one young man he cracks me up every time I talk to him. He just breaks right into, it's the sweet one, like right out of the commercial. And then he like froze. He looked at me like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And I just high-fived him. I'm like, dude, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. So yeah, I mean, you can't make that stuff up, right? So
it's funny too, because and I've gotten to know you a little bit, and I've listened in on a few of your podcasts, Empower Half Hour, which I recommend to viewers as well. One of the conversations you were having is sort of having that approachable conversation with anybody at any level, right? And having people comfortable enough, because students often are not comfortable enough or are unsure whether they can talk to someone. You're a superintendent, right? And whether you were superintendent or principal at that time, I don't know what your position was, administrator at whatever capacity you were at that time. I know when I was an administrator in K-12, I prided myself on getting to know the kids and talking to them as if they were at my level, and rightly so in my view. We're all human, living a human experience here. Whether you're just starting out as a kid or you've been around forever, you could always learn from others, and you should always empathize and understand that there is value to everyone at every level, and you should listen openly in order to get that really true, good, quality relationship with people. So Road to Awesome, a little bit about that, a little bit about your leadership style. I know that is part of it, right? So go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I guess I'll tell you maybe kind of the origin story, if you will, behind Road to Awesome. When I first became a school administrator, I was an assistant principal at a high school in Southwest Wyoming. It's the same high school I eventually became the principal. And so, I was hired for, that real thankless job that most people get as their first administrative job. I was in charge of discipline and attendance, so, that's not exactly a role typically that people would use to build culture. And I did not at first. I fell right into the same trap as everybody else had in our district. We were just like all about catching people doing things wrong. And to be honest with you, we were good at it. And I'm embarrassed about that. I don't really like the person I was during that time, but it kind of helped build to where I am and how I lead now. It was very interesting to see how we were focusing on just really catching people doing things wrong. I can't come up with a better way to say it.
Darren, I'm going to push you on that a little bit too. Why was that wrong? Because not everybody understands why that was wrong. Like Why did you feel like that was not the right approach at that time? And then I'm sure you'll get to this. What was the transformation moment for you?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that at the time I did feel that it was wrong. I remember, a couple of teachers even telling me, because I asked them, guys, what do you need from me? I'm new to this role. What do you need from me? And one teacher was like, I need you to be who they're singing about in that Nazareth song, Hair of the Dog. So now you're messing with a son of a bitch. That's what they wanted me to be. They wanted me to hammer on kids until kids did what they wanted. So in other words, punishment to gain compliance. You and I both know, Al, that doesn't work.
I call it fear-based leadership. Yeah.
There you go. That's another way to put it. And well, I mean, our phrase, even the four of us that were leaders in that building, and maybe we weren't even really leaders at that time. It was, I'm going to ding that kid, or I'm going to ding that teacher. That was the language that we used. I mean, oh man, it was so toxic, but it didn't dawn on me. And now I look back, and this is in reflection when the Road to Awesome was born. We were in a staff meeting, and the whole purpose of this staff meeting, and it was mine to lead, was what are we going to do about hats and cell phones? Like real crucial stuff in education. What are we going to do about hats and cell phones? Just ridiculous. But we're, by the way, the answer is quit worrying about it. But at the time, that's not where we were. Yeah. How about we focus on teaching and learning? I don't know. Who am I to say that, right?
By the way,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I don't mean to be flippant about that, but that's where we were. And somewhere between, if we just put them in those little calculator things and make them sit there, to, I don't know, if you just taser one kid, maybe look at the message. Somewhere in between there, somebody raised their hand and said, why has it always got to be about what they do wrong? Why can't it be about what they do right? And it was like, I got hit by a lightning bolt. And, years later, I was presenting at a conference with another fellow code breaker, Bradley Skinner. He was a teacher of mine at the time. And we were talking about culture building, because from that moment forward, we decided it was time for us to shift the culture in our school. Let's start focusing on what they do right and not what they do wrong. And we were able to really build some great things culture-wise in that school. But as we're presenting about this, we showed this video that I'm certain you've seen. It's a pep talk by Kid President. And in the video, he goes right to the Robert Frost poem, The Road Not Taken. And he kind of, in his own way, jumps to, what if there really are two roads? I want to take the one that goes to awesome. And Road to Awesome was born. I mean, it was just like, wow, that's what this has been about all this time. Go back to that moment. Why is it always got to be about what they do wrong? My world split in two, and I could stay on this road that was easy. Let's catch them doing it wrong. I knew where to hide to catch kids smoking in the bathroom. I knew where to hide when kids were skipping. But what if instead we take this road, and it's a tough road sometimes, but what if we spend our time really recognizing, rewarding, and reinforcing the things that people do right, our adults and our kids? If we pour ourselves into building a culture where we value people, where you talked about the human experience, where we make it about the human experience, where we lead through love and not through fear. It was just a massive transformation. And for me as a leader, even when I transitioned from being a principal to being a superintendent, it was, we've got to build cultures where people feel empowered, our kids and our adults. Mm-hmm. We need to build cultures where our vision and where we see ourselves going is so crystal clear that everybody is saying the same thing. It's not just, Darren says this, but everybody else is like, I don't know where he's coming up with that. That's not what we're doing. No, we're all on the same page. And then ultimately, how do we celebrate that? And how do we tell that story? And so the book, Road to Awesome, is all about that. Oh, it disappears in the background, doesn't it?
It does, but you can just shift to your left there.
Yeah. And you're good. Oh, that's true. You can just see the logo there. So yeah, exactly. But yeah. So if there we go.
Perfect. There you go. Good.
Okay. We're going back. We're going back to the background. So, but in my book, the whole idea, and this goes back to me as a leader, my core as a leader, there are 6 things that I believe, for me, and not for everybody else, but for me, are the most important things in leadership. And these are the things that I will go and proverbially stand on the balcony and look down and see, how are we doing on these 6 things? Leading with vision, building positive culture, empowering our kids, empowering our adults, telling our story, and then coaching. Are we coaching each other? Not just evaluating each other. Are we coaching each other around the work that we're doing? So, and then the final piece in the book is challenging leaders to look at, what are the things that are important to you? It doesn't have to be what's important to me, but if you as a leader are clear about what's important to you, what you're going to stand on the balcony for, that's going to make you a much, much better leader. That's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah. What are you passionate about? And I love that. And to be clear, I think you would agree with this. There is a lot of value in what you experience because of the perspective it gave you, right? I mean, it shaped sort of, if you didn't experience that, you wouldn't have shaped and morphed into it. It's really a change of mindset in my mind. And as you're talking about these aspects of leadership, they all stem from trust, really, right? Trust and empowerment. Like I know you love that word, and your podcast is around that. But you can't empower if you don't trust. You can't empower if you don't change the mindset. One of the analogies I always go back to is, if you're trying to teach a kid to swim, and you're on the edge of the pool and you're holding their head underwater and saying, swim, 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 they're not going to swim very well. They're going to think about how they have to survive from having their head submerged underwater, right? So, and that punitive piece that's essentially what that does. And it's really great that, because not everybody can do this, Darren. Not everybody. I always say you have to be aware to be aware, right? And having that understanding and being able to step outside yourself is really an incredible thing, and a leadership trait that not everyone has. So kudos to you on that. But go ahead.
I appreciate
that.
More
about like what do you want this book to achieve? Like what is the grand sort of message that you want to get out there? That first of all, we'll put a link so people can purchase the book, which I recommend highly. Purchase that book and become a part of the Codebreaker community, of course, too. And it's a great community of really amazing, passionate educators that I'm just starting to get to know, but I could see right away how wonderful this group is. But messaging, like, what do you want? What's your sort of advice, or you're on the balcony saying something? What's the top thing you want to say to?
I would tell you, and I think honestly, you talk about learning and growing from experience. I think this last 9 months has galvanized even more the thing that I believe most, and that is that leadership matters. In fact, I would tell you, and this is just my belief, but I think right now, just in general, not even just right now, I truly believe leadership is the strongest, most powerful lever we can use to improve our schools and to improve the lives of kids. And I know a lot of people will say, wait, Darren, just stop right there. Great teachers in the classroom are the most important things. And I agree with that. I agree with that 1,000 times over. But I'll tell you, in schools where there is not great leadership, you'll have 1 or 2 great teachers, but they're going to be there in isolation. In schools that have great leaders, you're going to have a ton of great teachers, because those leaders are going to empower those teachers. They're going to give them the opportunity and the trust to take risk. We only become great if we're willing to take risk. If we sit back, if we kind of stay huddled in fear or paralyzed to wanting to take risk, whether that's because we're in a culture that punishes that, not rewards it, or we just, as an individual, are just afraid to put ourselves out there, we never get to greatness. Again, I mean, you might have some people operating in isolation and greatness, but man, when you've got great leaders, and that doesn't just have to be principals or superintendents. I mean, that's just anybody who's willing to build relationships, to focus on people being people first, and setting up that culture where we're going to reward you for taking risk, not punish you. So in a nutshell, that is like my number one passion. Leadership matters. And right now as leaders, man, we really have to take advantage of the opportunities we have. I know right now it's easy to look at everything that's happening with the virus and all that kind of stuff and say, boy, we've got to be conservative here. I look at it the exact opposite way. We've got a great opportunity to learn from what we're going through and to come out on the other side just absolutely great. So again, leadership matters. I'm a little passionate about that, in case you can't tell.
And I think anybody who's been in an educational setting, or you're a parent and you're looking at leadership, what your superintendent is doing, what your principal is doing, the messaging, the feeling, the genuine nature, either for yes, you are genuine or you're not, of people, the relationships that you have, that's all part of leadership matters, right? That's all part of this, because it's all building culture. And if it's one of mistrust, if it's one of punitive nature, if it's one of, like you said, where you're not encouraging risk, people are not going to take risks if they try and take a risk and you say, no, you're doing it wrong, before they even get started, right? So it's and you could extrapolate that out to being a parent and your relationship with your spouse or a significant other. You could really extrapolate that out with anything. But leadership, I love how you really phrased it simply. Leadership matters. Why does it matter? Because empowerment follows, right? If you really focus on culture and trust and understanding and empathy and encouragement of passion, and risk, as far as engaging in that passion, you're going to empower folks and great things can happen. Great things that may never have happened if you didn't do that, right?
Well, for sure. And I think, I mean, you and I both experienced this. I mean, we both worked for leaders who put us in that position, you know, and put the trust in us and said things like, hey, just go run your building. You know, I got you. And and you probably, I know I have worked for leaders who it was the exact opposite, you know, where you you know, I worked under a superintendent at a point in time when I was a high school principal. And I can tell you all 13 of our buildings, man, the leaders just retreated and it was just survival mode. And man, when there's such a difference there, and organizations, people in organizations are going to take on the personality of their leaders. And, you know, when you're willing to put yourself out there, when you're willing to demonstrate trust, and most importantly, you're going to go build relationships. Because, I mean, you went back to it all being about trust. You can't have trust without relationships. And so when you have those types of leaders, man, great things are going to follow. And when you have the opposite, and it's just survival mode at that point.
Well, I am sure your culture, I haven't been to your school yet, but when this is all over, I'd love to come visit you there. And I am, based on what I hear from you, I'm sure the culture in your district is amazing. It's always evolving, right? That's the thing too. It's not this static thing. Having leadership that matters, redefining leadership, as we say, with this sort of collective mindset. It takes work. It doesn't happen like, hey, all right, I decided to do it and we're good.
We're done. Yeah.
You have to decide to do it, right? You definitely have to decide, but decisions, but I think people, often people like you had this epiphany essentially, right? Well, epiphanies are great, but they don't define your future. Like you have to act on those epiphanies on a daily basis. And that's what I think you're doing. And Road to Awesome seems like it really outlines that well.
Yeah. So I think you hit one of the most important points, just right on the head. And that is your culture is always changing. You know, your culture is going to change in either direction, just depending on how you react to certain situations. When you get a new student, when you get a new teacher, when you get a new whatever, that changes your culture. And it doesn't necessarily negatively or positively, it all comes down to what are you doing intentionally to keep building your culture. You know, I tell my leaders all the time, I tell leaders when I speak, all that kind of stuff, that if we're not intentional about our culture, if we don't put time on our calendars specifically around building culture, our culture will change. It just may not change the direction you want it to, because you have to be out in front of it. You have to be intentional. And I'll tell you right now, during this really challenging time in education, everything we do, every communication that we send out, we have to be very intentional. Just a real quick story. Last Thursday, we had to transition our high school back to 2 weeks of remote learning. Had a positive test, had a presumed positive test, all that kind of stuff. But we had a lot of people in our community that were very angry and very frustrated, and they weren't alone. I had a whole lot of my faculty who were very frustrated and angry, including me. But I was very intentional to take some time to gather my thoughts, to not react or respond or push out communication when I was in that space. And then ended up, sending out a video communication to our entire community about we can't control a lot of what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. It's probably the most frustrating thing for leaders right now. We may not say we're control freaks, but let's be honest, as leadership, it's not that we want to be in control, but we need to be in control of certain things. And there's a lot of things we can't control. And, but I just really stress to my community, and I stress to my faculty, and I stress this to myself over and over and over. We can control how we react. We can control how we behave. We can control the decisions we make and the way we model ourselves in front of our children. And those are the types of things that, being intentional, I think that will build rather than tear down culture. And again, that comes back to telling our story. Educators stink at telling their story. We really do. We rely on others to tell our stories, whether it's test scores or right now responses to COVID or whatever the case may be. But, if we don't tell our stories, somebody else is going to, and we probably won't like the version of the story they tell. So
that's exactly right.
So
I think
it's all about culture building.
People are yearning for normalcy. They're yearning for things to just get back to the way they were. And what you did, and I didn't see the message, but I see that you have humility and empathy and understanding. And when you're messaging out to folks in the leadership space, honesty, integrity, saying like, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling probably some of what you're feeling. Yeah. This is what we're dealing with. And obviously always the first thing is the safety for our children, no matter what it is, whether it's a threat, some external threat or a virus or whatever it might be. That is the priority, always number one priority. And then second is obviously to educate our kids. But I love that you were humble enough to get out there and message, and because people respond to that too. Leadership matters in that way too, when they realize, hey, yes, you're a great leader, but you're still human enough to understand and to articulate, tell the story of what's going on. That's a huge piece as well.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So we're going to close out here. Darren, I can't tell you how much I love doing it. We're going to do some fun stuff moving forward with Codebreaker as well. So that's going
absolutely
to do work with you more directly on that project. So look forward to the Codebreaker podcast moving forward too. Any closing thoughts, final thoughts before we break? But really, I'm so appreciative that you came on and really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, I really appreciate it too, Al. It's like I was saying, just going through some of the things we're going through. We have our days where things are tough, and having a moment to kind of take a step back and reflect, even on my own leadership journey and some of those things. And anytime I get a chance to talk about Road to Awesome, it always puts a smile on my face. I guess as far as final thoughts right now, we've seen a lot of things transpire here in the last, let's say 72 hours, thereabouts, in our country. And I've heard some really excellent things said, and putting anything to do with politics aside, hearing things like, maybe this many people voted for the candidate who won, but this many didn't. And we have to empathize with those who didn't, those who maybe have some anger right now or some fears. Maybe those are the same fears that other people had 4 years ago. We have to understand, and we have to remember, each one of those are still human beings. Yep. Each one of those are still Americans, whether they feel this way or that way. we have to empathize with each other. It's one of the most powerful things I heard this weekend. Two other things that I heard that just keep staying in my mind. Second, and I shared this message with my entire staff yesterday. I sent them an email and a short video that I had seen on YouTube. That's just a very empowering video. Everything that we do with our kids, we build hope. We build hope for a better future through educating our kids, through building relationships with our kids. And we do the same thing with our communities. We really saw some cool things happen over the weekend, I think, that instill hope in all of us. And the challenge for all of us right now is not to lose sight, excuse me, not to lose sight of that hope. There's a lot of things to be hopeful for.
Yes.
You know, it's a mindset thing. We can be worried about things we can't control, which is really, really hard, or we can focus on the things that give us hope right now. And the last thing, man, I don't know about you, I'm a girl dad, and we actually just did our Empower half hour yesterday morning with Roman Novak. It's coming out Wednesday night. It's a great show. But all four of us on the show, girl dads, and we spent a little bit of time talking about how the glass ceiling has completely been shattered for women. You know, right now, man, what an unbelievably exciting time in the world to see. Again, politics aside, what an incredible moment for hope.
Yeah.
So
anything
rambled a little bit there, but those are my final thoughts.
That's wonderful. We're all humans living a human experience. I have a 12-year-old daughter as well. So it's to see the light sort of in her eyes and the understanding, hey, wow, that's anything's possible. Is an amazing thing. And if you learn nothing else from this, that's a really wonderful message. But
and I'll tell you what, I just have to share this too. I mean, you know, sitting and listening to Vice President-elect Harris, listening to her speak, and my wife and daughter were in the room. My daughter's 20 years old. She'll be graduating from college at the end of this school year. And to just see her just overcome with emotion, you know, man, it's an exciting time. It really, truly is.
And to your point, the messaging now is what it should be. We're all in this together. We're all humans. We're all in this together. Whether that's at the very local level with your neighbor or at the national level, we're all in this together. And I think it's wonderful messaging to say, listen, let's just get this done together. It applies to schools, it applies to leadership, it applies to politics and beyond, right? So thank you again.
Thank you.
We will I'm sure be in touch. Road to Awesome. We'll put the link, share this video with whoever you want, but make sure when you share it, you put, we can get it on Amazon, right? Road to Awesome.
Absolutely.
Sure you look at that link and pick up Darren's book. Amazing guy, amazing leader. And we all could learn a little something from him and his book especially. So pick that up. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right on. Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.